Hey everyone, welcome to Dominion 6. We are going to be playing around with some ritual spells. So I've done a video on some of the new reworked or very cool combat spells. This one's going to be the top, I think, third ritual spells? And there's some wild shit in here, okay? So some of the things I'm going to show you are like easy. It's just going to be like summoning a unit. Some of these things are going to be crazy, like creating an instance of yourself that if it dies, you'll reappear, maybe, right? Like, we've got some crazy stuff. So hang tight. All right. So 3 of these, and I put them up at different points, I think, on some of these YouTube videos for Dominion 6 prior, but there's a lot of really cool glamour summons. We're not going to talk about all of them. I'm going to talk about 3 of them, the 3 mages. So the gnome and the fairy queen have been reworked, and it's a pretty big deal. And the Fey Prince is also definitely thug capable for what I would call a very modest price. I've got debug mod on, so you can't see the research level, but yeah, the fairy prince is 30, the gnome is 30, and then the fairy court is 60, which makes sense because the fairy queen is good. Oh, we got some of these guys too. Nice. Oh, wait, this is new. How did we get the Queen of Winter? Wait, what? There's new fairy queen sprites. This must be based on what they roll. Wait, what the hell? Did they change this just before release? Fairy Court, Fairy Queen Commander. Let's just mass summon this now. Let's see what the hell happens. Are these unique units? What have we stumbled upon? This is what I was used to getting. How did we get her? Queen of Winter. Did we cast that previous one in winter and then we get... Okay, hang tight. We're going to just spam this out real quick. I'm going to pause it. All right. Yeah. So I've spammed it out here, and you can see we've got a lot of different flavors of Fairy Queen. What I think happens is if you cast it in the winter, I think you get the Queen of Winter. That's really interesting. Fairy Queens of Summer Courts are known to be friendly and even give favors. Winter Queens, not so. They're cold, malicious, and even hostile to mankind. What? Wow. So if we look at the stats, Fairy Queen, 18 hit points. They've got like awe, poison resistance, glamour. They're disease healers, so they heal the army. These ladies know. They're like thugs. They've got ice protection, cold power. Damn, these are both very good stats to have on a thug if you have cold dominion. Chill aura. Damn. They are magic beings, which is usually a bad tag. And they can recuperate. That's still super cool. Damn. High death mages. Oh no, it's a random they can get. They all are going to have so instead of growth or nature, instead of nature, they have water. So they're glamour water instead of glamour nature, and then they get a bunch of randoms. Interesting. Okay, but anyway, that's the fairy queen. The fairy prince is actually pretty sick too. This guy is also... Oh, you get a different one of these in the winter as well. Interesting, because if we cast it now in the spring, I'll just do it again here real quick. Gnome, Fey Prince. No, okay. You'll see we'll get the normal kind. So that's really interesting. There's a winter version of it. It makes me feel like I'm in Narnia or something. It's so cool. I love these little additions they sneak in. So this is the normal one, right? And you can see these paths are not random. You get the same ones every time, but it's Glamour 2, Nature 1. These are pretty good thug paths. You can cast Invisibility with a Glamour gem, Personal Regen with a Nature gem. They've got all built in. They're pretty sick. And then this is the one you get in the winter, right? So he's got a Chill Aura now. I guess they're all going to come with Death 1. Death 1 is not very good for thugs, but I think this lets you it lets you cast Fear on a bunch of your units, which is pretty sick. You might have to like up your Glamour Path 1 to cast. I think it's Glamour 3, Death 1. But yeah, that's really cool. The gnomes you get appear to be the same no matter the season, but these guys are also really nice for 30 gems. They're a great caster. So very cool. Another change I might not have mentioned, but we'll just sneak it in here as a little extra, is that a lot of the armors now give bonus hit points. When I was looking at the gnome, gnomes did not have much hit points, but these guys give a fair amount of hit points to the things that you put on. So it's a lot easier to boost hit points now. So it gives you a lot more options. A lot of times that was the limiting thing for like being able to be a thug or being able to romp around in an army was not having enough hit points on like a human mage. There's a lot of ways to up that now. But anyway, that was our first one, which was glamour mages that you can summon. Very cool. Our next one is a pretty interesting spell. We use one of the fairy queens here to cast it, and it's project self. So what's kind of cool, because we'll make a kit actually here. So we'll make a bunch of items that you could have. We're also going to make a thistle mace, and we'll make enemy. Whenever an enemy is close to one of the warriors of the mirror steps through to fight. I don't know how that works, but we're going to try it out. Glamour magic +1. Aw, we'll put some of these glamour items on. Pixie shoes. Just do all the things. We'll give some trinkets here. I don't know what all these things do. Dream spool gives you illusionary warriors. We'll just see which of these things come through in the final battle. So what we're going to do is we're going to do project self, and it's going to send like an image of ourselves. I think it might be like a 1 hit point image. It's going to be kind of wild. So let's load these things up on here. I believe that it works for... Where's project self? It's evocation. Wait 1 second. I thought it was evocation something, project self. Oh, we have to have astral. Okay, we're going to empower an astral. So a fairy queen can't do it naturally. But yeah, so Glamour Astral, you can cast Project Self. I'm thinking Relay will have these paths. I know Relay got some Glamour access. So we can like send ourselves over here. We'll read the spell description here too, actually. So Project Self, since caster sends a projection of himself to a distant province, the projection is an ethereal replica of the caster with the same magic skills as the caster. Items are not projected, but any path boosting magic items will still have effects. The projection will only last for 1 battle. So, oh, you know what I want to put on? Let's take this off. I want to put... Oh, no, I don't think that'll work. We're going to try. I'm going to make a Twist Fate amulet. Yeah, here we go. So, put the Twist Fate amulet on. And I'm going to wait 1 turn, then we're going to cast it. Because the Twist Fate amulet actually has to sit on you for a turn to take effect. We're just going to see what happens. I've cast this before in a test game, so it's not like I'm totally curious, but I always find new things when I just kind of set it up as a test. Now, this is probably not going to work. I don't think the way to use this is like as rating, because I don't think you can bring gems, but we'll take a look. So we're going to do mirror image here, which is pretty good. It's going to ramp up with displacement. We're going to do Twist Fate in case we haven't done it already. And we're a nature mage. We're going to try out the old awaken tree tactic here. Animate tree. And then we're going to see if we can animate the forest. Now, this is probably not going to work, but we're just going to kind of see what's happening. Here we are. Awaken forest. Oh, we can't quite do that. Are we nature? Oh, we're nature 4. I think we might be able to. But we're going to be, I think you have to have nature gems. And I don't think we're going to have nature gems. I don't think those come with us, but we'll see. I think we're going to have a 1 HP mage that's going to... We'll just see what this is. But I think this is going to be a good way to like support armies remotely. Like if you just want to mage there for 1 turn to cast some spells, like especially evocation. So it casts mirror image. Doesn't have any of the items, but you can see it kept the nature 4 bump. Can't be affected by things like iron skin, skeletal body, and polymorph. So it's like spirit form. And it's really wild. And yeah, the gems didn't transfer over. I mean... That wasn't that bad. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. So that's Project Self. It's wild, and it didn't look that good right now, but I'm sure players will figure out... And, like, she's right here. She didn't die, right? I'm sure players will figure out a pretty interesting way to use this. Let's actually send her, just because I want to see the battle. With this is what would have happened if we actually sent her with the gems and the script that we used. As you can tell, we have a very hard time making short videos here because we get easily distracted. But that's the minions for you. So yeah, she gets a retinue of fairies. Oh yeah, we just cast Awaken Forest. God, that spell is so strong. Holy shit. That spell. You cast it in a forest. Jesus Christ almighty. All right. Next up, we have the spell Lost Land, which is pretty wild. So it's this spell. It's an earth spell. Takes 100 earth gems. One coastal province is drowned. So you have to cast it on a coastal province. Let's see if we can cast it. I've already cast this before, but okay, we're going to need a Staff of Elemental Mastery. What the hell is this? Abominable Arms. Ah! Look at that. You get bonus 2 arms, but you lose stats. Tainted? That's wild. This is going to see some use, though. Getting 2 arms, even if you take a huge penalty, this penalty is not enough, because it's still going to be really strong. Because you can take weapons, which are going to get your defense back up. It's going to be very good on super combatants if you don't mind just a little bit of taint, you know? Just a little bit. I think some Pretender God chassis it would be really good on too. Okay, so now what do we do? I need a Staff of Elemental Mastery to increase our range. So this is an elemental spell we're casting. And we're going to sink something here into the sea. So this is Lost Lands. If you haven't seen it, this is a very powerful new ritual spell. Wherever you cast it, things that are there are going to have a chance to flee to adjacent provinces. But if you cut off the retreat routes, they'll all die. So this is obviously a very powerful ability. Being able to put a... It's like one of the great floods of old. Yeah, look at that. That's wild. Kelp Forest. It's interesting that it's kept because this is like a Illwinter populated graphics. It's kept like dead trees here. Like it used to be a forest. That's really interesting. Which kind of makes sense. The trees are now dead at the bottom of the lake. But yeah, that's pretty interesting. So next up, we have another crazy glamour spell called Simulacrylum or something like that. Let's see if we can cast it. So, oh, I haven't turned on Commander Renaming. I don't know why that's not a default option. Okay, let's come back up here. I'll show you the spell. So Simulacrylum is a spell here in enchantment. It costs 20 glamour gems. And basically, it makes a copy of you. And you disappear. So she's going to cast it. I think I probably should have taken the items off. I don't remember how that works. We'll just see, because this is a test game. I don't really care. Okay. So, Glamour Manipulator, Simulacrylum is an actual copy of whom it looks like. If the Simulacrylum caster dies, the caster will reappear where the real body is kept safe, as long as the soul doesn't get lost in the dream wild before returning. There's an 80% chance the caster reappears after the Simulacrylum's death. Each month thereafter, the chance is reduced by half. So it's like, first you have an 80%, then you have a 40%, then you have a 20%, then you have a 10%, then you have a 5%. So if you don't come back right away, you're probably lost in the dream wild. So what we're going to do is we're going to just send this person off to... So this is a full version. I could just show you what she can do, but it's literally the same thing, right? Like, and I'll keep one of the items on her. We'll keep this glamour hood on her. This is one of the glamour path boosters. It's reasonably cheap. So we're going to send them over here, have them do some things. This will probably get them killed. And then we'll see what happens. Okay. So she attacks over here and dies. And the real Genie has reawakened after her Simulacrum died. So I believe that's her. She's got... Yeah, wait, no. Experience. Wait, where's the real one? I wish I could have renamed her. Let's see if there's some identifying traits on her. She probably has more experience. Experience 24. Diogeny. It's gonna be really hard to tell the right one. Here's the blurred icon. I wonder if I can go to Commander. Go to Commander. Oh yeah, so it's this one. Oh, it's the Astral Empowered one. Yeah, so she's back. You see we couldn't use it to duplicate items though. And the Glamour Hood, which died on our Simacrolum, is actually dead. So if you take the items off, like you don't... The items that were on the original caster will shift to the new form. But when you get the original back, they don't come with items. So that makes sense. But yeah, this is very powerful because it's just like a full-on copy. And if it dies, it doesn't matter. You have to be careful doing it on your Pretender, because if you get unlucky with the dice, then yeah, your Pretender's dead. But on the other hand, if your Simacrolum never dies, then it's not a big deal. You know? But then also you kind of wasted your gems casting it. But yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, it's pretty cool. You don't get 2 copies of yourself, right? The copy, the original copy, just waits in hiding for the second copy to die. So it's kind of like a weird, different Twiceborn. I don't know. It's a cool, interesting new mechanic. Next up is a spell called Disenchantment. And this is so we're talking about ritual spells now. This is like a different version of Dispel. You can do Dispel, which is going to have, it's 3 astral, so it's easier to cast. It's only 30 gems. Or you can do Disenchantment. And now Disenchantment, you're going to have to put, if you want... Okay, so when would you use Dispel? Dispel, any gems you put over 30 are going to go towards beating down the overcast of whatever you've hit. So if you knew exactly how many gems were in something and you wanted to Dispel it, you would still always cast Dispel. If you don't know how many gems are in something, you may want to use Disenchantment, because now if it fails, half of the gems you put into this will reduce the overcasting of the targeted enchantment. So it's a really interesting way. Normally, if you fail to overcast an enchantment, you've just completely wasted whatever gems you put in. Well, now you've actually eroded the effectiveness of the global. So that's pretty damn interesting. That's Disenchantment, a powerful new ritual. The next spell up is actually another interesting glamour spell. It's a spell called Void Pattern Labyrinth, and it's kind of wild. It's a way to protect against horrors. Let's make sure I have. Listen to enchantment. Where are we? Void Pattern Labyrinth. Okay, so the next one's Void Pattern Labyrinth. It's astral and glamour. And so a void pattern dome is created over the province. So it's basically a dome, but this protects you from horrors. So like horror cannons, this will block that. It's also going to protect you from things like if you're horror marked. So you could potentially use this to protect like a commander who's been severely tainted, wearing horror type items from horrors. And it also can be used to protect you from like astral corruption and cataclysm type of things, which are, either globals or events in game that cause horrors to attack you. So that's kind of interesting. I'm not sure on the mechanics, like how frequently it blocks it, but it does a poor job at blocking doom horrors. But I could see this being a very important spell. There's a lot of things that are really good in the game that will cause you to get horror marked, so you end up avoid doing it. And they've changed Life After Death, which used to give you, which actually is going to be up on this list, but it used to give you mindless guys. Now it doesn't. So that was one of the main ways to avoid horrors as well. So they've kind of gotten rid of that, but now there's a way to do it with this kind of cool spell. Next up is Lichcraft. And Lichcraft is now a level 9 spell. The caster dies and returns as an undead immortal lich. The lich is empowered in death magic. So on one hand, it's a very cheap way to do a death empowerment now, right? So basically you're getting a guaranteed +1 death for 25 gems. So this can be really nice for trying to reach really high levels of death. If you have a nation that can get like a death 4 mage, there's a few of them, this will get you up for 25 gems to death 5. Then you can put on like the 2 death boosters, the skull staff and the skull face or whatever, the other death hat booster. And that'll put you all the way up to death 7. So you can get very high levels of death now using Lichcraft. And of course, It's immortal, and there's also lots of different chassis, including, let's see if we can get one here. I'm told there's it doesn't work on Pretenders, but I'm told there's a whatchamacallit, a giant form. We'll see if we can do that. Forest giants. Isn't there an earth giant or something? Hill giant. I'll empower this hill giant up. I'll see you in a second. Okay, so I've got a hill giant. We're going to do Lichcraft with him. I've empowered him in death. This might not work because a lot of times Illwinter gets these like chassis specific spells working for like very specific nations. So like this is one of the Ashdod kind of Lich chassis, so it's pretty good. 45 hit points. I think there might be bigger chassis too. We'll have to actually explore the game and see. Like this is again going to be a separate video probably on all the different Lich chassis. But anyway, it's a very cool spell. He was death 5 to cast it, but he also had his skull staff on, so he got a bonus death level, and he's immortal. So you can have, especially if you got really cool death mages, you can have really cool immortals running around now too that are like thematic and based on your nation. So I think this is a really cool addition to the game. All right, next up is a spell called Stellar Strike, and this calls meteors out of the sky as a remote attack. So you can see it's not that many for a single cast, but imagine this was a huge army, and you can cast it, I believe, multiple times. So it didn't actually kill that many. But this is going to be really hard to resist. If you get hit by a ton of Stellar Strikes, this might be more defining than, and it's actually not that expensive. Can't target caves or underwater provinces. Let's make sure you can multiple cast it. The way these tend to work, these ritual spells that now, instead of just like giving you a message, you actually see an in-game battle. They tend to, like if you do multiple casts, they like stack after each other. So it'll be like, the first one goes for a few rounds, then the next one goes for a few rounds, then the next one goes for a few rounds. You can potentially counter some of this with mages by casting things like Twist Fate. Yeah, there was a gap, and then here comes the second round. And there'll be a gap, and we'll see a third round, because we cast it 3 times. And there's big area of effects around it. So what I think is the meteor probably does 150 damage, but then there's a bunch of like fire damage around it. But you can potentially do Twist Fate to block this. Like there's things you can do with your mage core. They will be able to cast spells in this, but I don't think they'll be able to use gems. So this is potentially a game-changing remote that could definitely affect things. Next up is a very interesting spell called Arcane Analysis. And this spell right here, it costs 25 gems, but it will tell you how many gems are put into a global. So we'll test it here. We'll do, let's say we put up Mother Oak, and there's 50 gems we put into it, but let's say we put 150 into it. So that's an overcast of 100. So we'll cast this, and as Ashdod, the opposing player, will do Arcane Analysis, and we'll do it on Mother Oak, and we'll see what it says. So as Ashdod, we have cast Arcane Analysis. It has a strength equal to about 121 pearls. And that's because it's higher than 100 because we cast it with a very powerful mage. And that added additional casting power to it. I believe it's 5 per path over the required path. So that speaks for the other 120. So this seems to be a reason. We'll cast it again and see how accurate the prediction is from turn to turn. Astral and Arcane Analysis. And this is game-changing, right? Because it used to be you never had any idea of how many things. Yeah, it's super accurate or precise, right? So it used to be you had no idea how many gems were put into something, and now it's trivial to know. It's like for an important global, it's very cheap to know, especially if you have a pool of players that want to contribute 5 gems each to doing Astral Analysis or Arcane Analysis. Like, it's crazy cheap. Crazy cheap. It's gonna make... This is going to change up the global game so much. I don't know if I'm going to like this or not. I feel like now, like if people can just know how many gems you put into it, If you do like a huge cast of something, it's going to be really hard to keep it up because people will just save for the exact amount and then take it down or overcast it. So I don't know. I don't know what this means. I don't know if I like it, but it's certainly going to make games less swingy, right? There's a lot of things like games can swing on a global because you like put enough where they can't overcast it, or they do a thing just underneath. There's now disenchantment, which will reduce the strength of globals, and then there's this, which will tell you how much is in it. The best combo is probably not disenchantment, which is going to, reduce the strength of the global if you fail. It's probably to do arcane analysis and then dispel or overcast. So I don't know. It's going to be really hard, I think, to hold up globals unless you really do have just a huge economy behind it, if people are going to be incentivized to overcast you. This is probably one of the most game-changing spells in 6. It's crazy. Like, because a lot of late game dominions is about global enchantments, and this is going to make it very difficult to hold up a global enchantment if people know exactly how much you put into it, which they will. So that's that. Next is Life After Death. And let me see if I can show you this. Life After Death. Let's get a bunch of these death mages here. Okay, I'm going to pause. All right, so I've got Life After Death going with Wrathful Skies up, so we'll kill a bunch of our own guys and turn them into undead. And so Life After Death is gone. Wrathful Skies is about to go up. I haven't got any of our commanders yet. Here's the soulless guy that we killed. Did we get any commanders? Please tell me. Okay, there's one white mage we got. So this is enough to show you. So they get afflicted. Like there's like a 90% chance they get feeble-minded and a 90% chance they get mute, and they're likely to get both of them. So I think this was sort of done in response to our Satis video we put up close to the game release. We might have gotten the Life After Death nerfed, but it got used for a bunch of things. So now you'll notice there's a few things. It's a better chassis on paper, right? Because it's, it's this white mage, which is a lot better than Soulless. It will heal. Soulless didn't used to heal. They have MR. Even with the feeble-minded penalty, it's more MR than a Soulless. Soulless had horrible stats. These have way better stats, but they come with all these afflictions. So if you take if you take recuperation or you have a way to heal undead, you can get these afflictions off. So it's a kind of interesting change to it. It's going to change for like low level play. It's not going to change much, but this is one of the most important. This is a super important spell in high level play in Dominions. So things are going to get changed a lot with that. It's a really important change. For troops and stuff, you get, if your guys die, like giants die will give you, we must not have lost many giants, but giants will give you, like, especially if they have gear on, you'll get like giant size soulless and stuff from that when they die. The basic idea for people who aren't familiar, Life After Death, if you die in combat, you come back as a permanent undead. But for mages, you now get all these like head afflictions, so you can't really be a mage. So that was that change is a really big deal. Next up is Nexus Gate. So you can just cast this spell, Nexus Gate, and it's going to make a connection to the Nexus. And let's see if we can go conquer it here. Let's take a bunch of these guys. And let's see if we can conquer Nexus. We're going to do Will of Fates. What does this do? Twist Fate for the whole battle, I think. Yeah. And then we're going to do Army of Gold, and then we're going to do Mass Regen. How about that? That'll probably win us the battle. And we're just going to put on the required Nature and Earth and Astral Gems to cast these spells. And let's head to Nexus. So you can see, in the trailer, the icon was different for Nexus. Now you actually have like a proper icon to go to Nexus. It doesn't look like a cave. Though this one probably also needs... I don't know what this icon should be, but that should probably change too. And then I'll show you what's in the Nexus. It's a very powerful site. All right, whoops. So there's only one. If Everybody can't go to their own nexus. Oh, we still lost a bunch of guys. There's a bunch of Grey Knights, which are really good, Shadow Seers, which are good. And you get this, which gives you 4 pearls a turn, and it gives you an alt 20 site. Now, you can build stuff here. You can build a palisade. You can build a lab. Yeah, it's pretty sick. So we could like build a lab, and we could, do a wizard tower here, and we're going to have a fort, and we really say, no, Nexus is ours. So rushing to control Nexus is probably going to be a reasonably common strategy. Because an Alteration 20, let me tell you the significance of this. The Alteration 20 site is going to let you cast Wish and make a profit. You can like wish for gems and get all your money back and a little bit more. So it's kind of like a printing money thing. It's expensive to do. It scales kind of slowly. But then, there's other Alteration globals and spells you can cast that are good. So this is a really, good province in place. So there can be multiple gates to the Nexus, and you'll have more gates spawn as people create it. So it's obviously going to be a pretty contentious territory to hold, but you can fort it. You can put domes up here and stuff. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So that's the Nexus. Next up is we have Infernal Fumes, and this is going to be pretty exciting to some of the underwater haters, the fish haters, if you will. Let's see if we can cast it here. I think I had somebody here with the Staff of Elemental Mastery. It's a Earth Blood spell. Do we have Blood Slaves? Let me wish for Blood Slaves. So it's a spell that you have to cast on land, like from the land, but can target underwater. So this is specifically for fish haters, right? Infernal Fumes. Cannot be cast underwater, so you must be on land. Can only target underwater. And it's 10 armor-piercing fire damage. So you cast it like this. Infernal Fumes. Where are you? Here we are. Okay, so, well, do we have other water places? Okay, we'll cast it here because there's actual dudes present. It's going to actually show us a battle. This is another one of those strategic remotes where you can like stack up casting, like Flames from the Sky. The good news is if you have Sacreds, you can do like Divine Blessing on them and do, I think it's heat poison damage. So if you have fire resistance or poison resistance in your Bless, you can protect them. But you can see it's pretty good. It's cheap too. It costs slaves, right? So it's just blood slaves to cast it. Yeah, it's 40 blood slaves. That's the equivalent of like maybe 20 gems, which is cool because before it used to be like underwater you were safe from most of the strategic nukes. Like you couldn't be hit by Murdering Winter, you couldn't be hit by Flames from the Sky. So it's like you had to just sit there. It's like another thing that was kind of stupid about underwater. They were immune to all the things. Well, now there's a way to just get them. So this is for the fish haters out there. Illwinter has heard your cries, and they have given you this weapon against the great evil that is the fish. And yeah, I think that's it for the spells I'm going to show off. So hope you've enjoyed. And next one is going to be globals. So tune in for that. Cheers.